Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Hello, men. The word vulnerable, susceptible to physical and emotional attack or harm, abuse or neglect. Susceptible to physical and emotional attack or harm, abuse or neglect. It's very easy for, let's start with the people closest to us, to forget as men that we are susceptible to things like emotional attack, physical attack, emotional harm, physical harm, emotional abuse, physical abuse, emotional neglect, physical neglect. It's just the definition of vulnerable. And we're piggybacking off of the conversation of part 1 of She Rejects You When You Don't Know Your Value. This is a follow-up to that because I believe as men, as we age, and again, this is for men, not little boys, not immature men who haven't grown since their adolescent days in middle school and high school and early years in college. This is for men. Men who know what they want, who have clear, defined boundaries and principles and morals, and they are led by purpose, on purpose, for a reason. Because there are things we can control and there's things we cannot. We talked about that in part 1. Link in the description. If you did not see part 1, I would recommend you go and check that one out. The audio is not great. I apologize, but it is worth the listen because we covered a whole lot of topics in that one. And this one is just a follow-up to really dive into that aspect of what happens when rejection does start to define you. And I think about this a lot because I went through this where the actual definition, the actual hurt and the pain and the trauma and the drama, all of that stuff wrapped up inside of me came from rejections and the feeling of loss, the feeling of lack of control due to loss, uncontrollable loss. It's something that if not faced at some point, you can put it off, you can procrastinate facing trauma and drama. I would say trauma and drama go hand in hand because when you have trauma, it usually leads to drama if you don't face the trauma. You will find yourself in some type of drama. So trauma and drama, to me, go hand in hand because if you have trauma, you will eventually have drama if you do not face the trauma. And why it is a part of you, why it's defining you. If someone said, hey, can you in 5 or 6 words define this person? And a few of them, out of 10 people, 6 of them say, this person is A, B, or C, common denominator there. There's something about you that you need to face. There's something about you that is a focal point in other people's minds about who you are, but you're not making a focal point about yourself. And again, we talked about this in part 1. In this part, we're diving into that rejection aspect of relationships, and especially when it's someone you've had your eyes fixated on, where it's a relationship where you thought if you got into this relationship with this girl, this woman, all of a sudden things are going to get better. We talked about this in part 1, but what we don't focus on is how do you handle it when those expectations do not happen? And you've gone into this realm of it's her or nothing. And how does that affect you? Because that feeling that we have leads to all types of different crossroads. The crossroads of fear, the crossroads of rejection, the crossroads of excitement, of lust. It can lead you down all these different paths. But if you're getting led down all these different paths, it will eventually lead you down to, if things don't go your way, vulnerability. You will feel vulnerable during these times and these moments that you fixate on, because the fixation is on something you cannot control. It's another person. And you're trying to conjure up all these visions of things that could possibly happen in your future, the white picket fence and the dog and marriage with someone you cannot control. And then we sit back and we get shocked when this person, or these women, if it's more than one, and usually it is, because you're not going to land the very first one that you have your eyes fixated on. Sometimes it does happen for guys. Everyone's stories are different. But for most of us guys, we don't get the dream girl right off the bat, because in order to get the dream girl, we have to be the dream guy to her. What are we bringing to the table? This leaves us vulnerable. Now, in a certain sense, being vulnerable is not so much of a bad thing, because it does give you the opportunity to step back and do what we call an after action report. When you get in these, if you're fixated on a woman, there's somebody you want to be in a relationship with, and you know that you're starting to get into that phase where you can't stop thinking about them. You want to talk to them all the time. You want to call them all the time. You want to see them all the time. Got to take a step back and breathe and understand you are opening up doors for yourself to be rejected. And there's nothing you can do about it. This is part of the game. If you want to call it a game, I call it life. It's part of life with anything. Take relationships aside and throw them in the trash for a second. You're left with all the other things in life that make up the human experience. There is no difference. Rejection happens in life regardless of what you're focusing on. If you focus on relationships 24/7, you're going to find rejection in them somewhere. It's part of life. It's the balance. It's just the balance of life. You are not always going to succeed. There has to be failure in there somewhere to balance everything out. So what happens when we get to that place where things are so unbalanced that we can't focus on all the other things that are supposed to be making them who we are? We're vulnerable. But it gives us, if you want to look at a pro of being vulnerable, it gives us the opportunity to address it. Make some changes. Press some different buttons. Get some different outcomes. Maybe add some wrinkles into what we've already established. Maybe refocus on ourselves and reestablish our self-respect and our self-love for ourselves, and not so much in other people. And let them do their thing. They're going to do their thing anyway. You can't control other people. Yeah, she's pretty. Yeah, she's beautiful. Yeah, she's charming. You love her laugh. You love her smell. You love what she's into. She has her own life to live. And unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. She has her own life to live. You have to live your life. Because if we don't do that, we become misunderstood. And that is something, when you're vulnerable, being misunderstood while you're also in a vulnerable state, now you're starting to cause trauma to yourself. Because you're not addressing anything. The fixation on the girl, the relationship, that is your focus. That is your television that you're watching in your mind all the time. You can't stop thinking about it. But when the time comes for you to have a conversation, when the time comes where you actually get what you want, again, she says, hey, fine, I'm interested in you too. What do you have? You spent so much time focusing on her, you don't know what you have to offer. Because you were just doing whatever you could, Lego block style, building whatever the blueprint told you to build. And there was no creativity in there for you to build your own set out of the pieces that were given to you. Come on, guys. We've all had Lego sets. When we got them, we built it one time, and what's the first thing you do after you build it? You get bored with it, you break it apart, and you build your own shit. That comes from not accepting things as it has to be only this or nothing. No, one of the reasons why we love Lego sets is because there are other options. You don't have to just stick with what they told you to build in the blueprint. You could build whatever the hell you want. You don't have, you could just take the pieces and do whatever you want. Who says you? I used to do it all the time. I would get a set just for the pieces. I didn't give a damn about building whatever it was supposed to be built for. I would take that book and I would throw it in the fucking trash because I already knew what I really wanted to build with those pieces. We have to get deeper into our creativity as who we are as a person, our uniqueness. That's the creativity. The creativity is building upon your own uniqueness. That's something she could see. Not only that, that's something someone could see in you that you didn't even know existed. That's much better for you than that one woman or the few women that you're so fixated on. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, man. We don't know what we don't know. We're looking at and for certain things and people when all we have to do is just stop and turn our heads around, read the room, read the tea leaves, understand where we're at in our crossroads moments, and what do we have to offer in that moment. Why settle for your current self and for that one person who you don't really even believe really is interested in you? And why put relationship status so high on the pedestal? We don't have to do these things. Our focus should be only what we can control. And all the rest of it does come along very easily. I can speak from experience with that. The moment I got out of my own head and started understanding that what I do is far more important in relationship status than what I can do for other people. Am I going to do things for other people? Of course. I love helping people. That's one thing that I absolutely love to do. But we cannot get fixated on just that aspect of reward from pleasing other people. And I remember doing this when I was in college. A girl would tell me she would like something. I'm like, whatever that thing was she liked, I would do until it was numb and boring and predictable. There's no creativity in that. And women actually hate that shit. They don't like predictable men. You got to change it up. Now, you might say, well, what do you mean? What I mean is you have to keep growing. And the only way you can really do that is you have to understand where you're at this point in time and truly try to fully understand where you're at in order to grow. Because if you don't even know that you're growing, then how do you know which direction you're growing in? Because there's a lot of people who say, well, I'm still the same person. And they are. There's a bunch of things that these people do that are exactly the same as they did a decade earlier. However, a lot of times these same people have grown into exceptional people and they are in exceptional relationships. And it looks like it's effortless. It's like, how did you guys get to this point? But the more you get to talk to them, you realize they embraced and did not compromise their uniqueness. They didn't take for granted their relationship. They weren't looking for always something bigger and better. And this is part of the problem. And this is why I believe a lot of men are afraid to really dive into committing to relationships with people that they feel may take work in the relationship. Now, what I mean by that? They're afraid that the woman that they're with is going to find out something about them that's going to be used as a weapon, that the woman will take advantage of their vulnerability, because A lot of guys get caught in this, and I did it too. When I was married, this happened to me a lot, where you get caught in this weird trap of being too sensitive and emotional and being too overly brutally honest and masculine. And you will find that she will teeter-totter back and forth between the two. But it wouldn't be at the times where you believe you should be doing that. So the times you think you should be overly masculine, that's the time she wants sensitivity from you. The times where you like, oh, I should be very emotional and sensitive about this, she wants you to man up and grab your balls and be the fucking man. Men, this is part of the problem I think a lot of men have going into relationships and sustaining them, is that you don't know when to turn off those switches of sensitivity and masculinity. You don't have to. They're all the same. They're all the same. You can be masculine and sensitive at the same fucking time. It doesn't have to be either or scenario based. I always found that this is one of the things that scared me in relationships when I was younger, was that I always felt like I wasn't masculine enough, or I would go in these bouts where I felt like I was too masculine. So I was always like, okay, well, women like, and it's really, this is another part of the problem. We'll get in a relationship with someone, and that particular woman will like something about you. It'd be her particular set of values and morals and things that she's attracted to. And then because we get success with this one woman, we try to apply that to every woman, and it doesn't work. That was one woman who saw things in you based on what she liked. And that's part of the problem we have with rejection, because then we'll go up to someone fully confident. Worked on the last one. Relationship didn't work out, but you know what? I got this. Let me try the same stuff on this woman, and you get rejected. Now your confidence meter is just going down, 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 down. You haven't grown. You haven't learned. You haven't explored. You're fixated. And it's not healthy. It's a very beta male simp way of going about it, when all you have to do is just hold your head up and just do you. Be yourself. Walk with purpose. Understand who you are. Embrace your creativity and your uniqueness of why you're here. Those things are attractive to certain women. Not every damn woman is going to be attracted to you. Just as you're not attracted to every woman. Everybody has a type. But we can't apply this. You wouldn't like it if a woman got in a relationship with you and she wanted you to be exactly like some other man. No, the feeling of being embraced by someone because you are who you are to the fullest, that is what we're looking for as men. We're not looking for cookie cutout relationships where there are things about you that can be replaced by another man very easily. Like money, house, car. These are all things that any man could get. Not any man can be in your shoes, living your life, doing your purpose. You have to also understand, though, there's nothing that's perfect, though. Even if you get every skill set that you desired and you feel like you're ready to go, that's when you probably find the sand lot of emptiness and void when it comes to dating. Because now you want what you want so much that there's slim pickings. That's one of the cons of getting over that vulnerability and saying, you know what? Fuck being vulnerable. I'm going to be me. I'll open up, I'll be emotional, and I'll also be masculine. But now if I look out and I see a sea of nothing, and I'm waiting for that one type of woman to come into our lives, this is the wrong approach as well. Stop waiting. Just start moving. Is it easier to find someone if you actually move or stay still? Is it easier to find the person you're looking for if you stand still and hope that they find you, or you actually start walking and with purpose, track down what you want. And if nothing out there, there's nothing out there. Can't force outcomes when it comes to relationships, when it comes just to the meeting the right person. We talked about in the last podcast, being at the right place at the right time. You have to, through who you are, know that I'm only going places that align with me and the people align with me. I'm much more likely to find my dream girl there than someplace where I am out of my element, I don't feel comfortable, and people can read it all over me. You're wasting your time. You're wasting her time. And you're not going to get it back. You are who you are now. And you're not who you are now at the same time. Now that's a weird way of saying every second that goes by, you're changing. If we was to focus on that kind of shit every single day, imagine that. Imagine just focusing on each second and knowing that that moment's gone. Here's a new moment, gone. Here's a new moment, gone. Here's a new moment, gone. Over and over and over again. Imagine focusing on that. It'd drive you insane. Time would slow down and it would force you to say, why am I doing this? And what am I gaining from this? Which is why I always tell men, oh man, get out of your fucking head. It's all in your head. The same way that you're counting down those seconds and you're trying to be so present in the outcomes in the present that you're doing absolutely nothing and too much at the same time. And Tao, which I follow, some people will say that having that concept of I'm here now, but I'm also not here because the moment coming up is where I'm actually at. Are you here now? Were you the moment before, or are you the moment in the future? And the question is yes to all three. You are all three. Because time is happening too fast and is going too slow to not be. And that's the balance that I think in life, especially in relationships, we have to account for what we're doing now, but we have to be so super conscious of what just happened before. And we have to be extra conscious of what could happen in the future. That's how we protect ourselves. You know, they say when you're driving a car, you need to scan, 15 feet ahead of you. You need to be looking ahead. You can't just say, I'm just going to stare at the steering wheel. I'm just going to stare right in front of me, just 2 feet in front of the vehicle. You're going to get someone killed. You're going to kill yourself. An accident is just waiting to happen because you're not looking at as much as you possibly can. Even if they're blind spots, you have the opportunity. Why aren't you taking it? And a lot of these women, when you're out with them and you're trying to interact with them, the rejection will come because what is really rejection to begin with? If you're interacting with anyone, that's rejection that happens to us all the time. And we don't even account for them. But we get feelings and emotions involved. And as a man, this is, again, when you have that spectrum of emotions and masculine, we can allow a little bit of that emotion to pour in certain spots. But if you allow the floodgates of emotion to pour into your masculine too much, what happens is that everything's a trigger now. You feel vulnerable all the time. How is that attractive? There's nothing wrong with having emotion and letting it bleed in. I like the balance of it. I don't want too much emotion flooding into my masculine, and I don't want too much masculine flooding into my emotions. I like it centered. I like everything in my life balanced. But if we are reacting to everything and you're in a relationship with a woman, or there's some person that you're looking to want to ask on a date, they see you. They hear you. They already know how you're going to respond. And a lot of times they'll test you. And as men, I can tell you, I see people fail the test all the time. And the test is, what are you going to do when she looks like she's not interested in you? or just flat out is not interested in you. What is your reaction? I remember back when I was younger, when I was in college, the reaction sometimes would be almost something of it's just embarrassing. It's almost like a sense of entitlement. It's because we get in our heads and we start telling ourselves these stories. Oh, we deserve her. If I do this, I'll earn her. She'll have no choice but to date me after I do this. We fail to realize she didn't ask us to do that. She doesn't owe us anything. She didn't ask us to go above and beyond. She doesn't have to say, you know what? You went above and beyond. You got me these flowers. You tried to take me on a date. You did this, 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 and this. How does that equal you deserve a relationship from that? And trust me, the door goes both ways. It's the same for a woman. If she says to you, there are things that she's done that requires you to do certain things because she deserves it, that's not right either. Investment for investment, it should be equal. Now, there are times, obviously, there are things that as men we should be doing. We should be opening up the car door for her. We should be paying for the meals at appropriate times and appropriate dates. But that doesn't mean that you should do it every time. She should be doing it too. Again, equal. If it's not equal, then how is it a relationship? If it's not equal, then how is it a relationship? It goes back to that 50-50 deal. It's not 50-50. It is 100-100. Investment for investment. And if you're not getting that, what relationship are you honestly in? We're looking for impact in life. And if we're looking for impact and results from what our purpose gives us, if we're looking at money and we're looking at finances and wealth, all these things that as men, we're providers. We're supposed to find ways to make multiple streams of income. We're supposed to carry the load when it's time to be called upon to do so. But what is really interesting is that these are things that we should be doing for ourselves. And I keep going back to that. I just hammered that in part one. The relationship aspects of it are great. She will appreciate you. If you're going above and beyond and you're carrying that load, she will appreciate you more. But you can't do it wanting outcomes from them. I made this mistake when I was married. I would do things because I'm like, this will show her that I'm all in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to write her notes. I'm going to clean. I'm going to cook. I'm going to do all these things. And really what it did is just and every man's different because you have to understand who you're with. But for me, in my situation, it just made me weak and feminine and simp. Because it came off that I was doing it because I wanted something. Like I was trying to buy something or I was trying to gain something through the acts where in my mind, I was doing them anyway. But subconsciously and emotionally, I knew deep down inside I was doing it because I wanted to prove something because I wanted an outcome from her, my own wife. It was a cry for attention. And I didn't realize I was doing it until I was divorced, in a new relationship with my butterfly, hello butterfly, who is my strength and my pillar, and I am that for her. You realize the difference in relationship status with those things when I'm doing the exact same thing I was doing when I was married. But this time I'm doing it because I know I would be doing it if I was not in a relationship at all. And I'm not looking for outcomes based on other people's reactions to what I'm doing. I'm just doing them. I'm not thinking. I'm not saying I should do this because she might come to bed with me tonight and I might get what I want. That's not why I do the laundry, why I pay the bills, why I go to work every day. That's not why I do it. I'm doing all that for me and my family, my beautiful lady benefit from it. Not because I'm in a state where I'm super vulnerable and I think, hey, I should do this. Fellas, if you listen to this, again, this is part 2. It's really all about you being comfortable with being rejected. You've been comfortable with knowing that rejection doesn't define you, that your impact and your uniqueness comes from what you're doing creatively with your life. Again, with those blocks, those Lego blocks that we were talking about, what are you building? Are you sticking to the script, or are you going out and creating your own thing? Either option is perfectly fine. But you have to be okay with the outcome. And whatever you build doesn't mean the person you're building it in front of is going to like what you build, or is going to agree that you chose to go away from the blueprint, or maybe they'll appreciate that you did. This is life. This is how life works. This is how relationships work. We're not guaranteed anything. You don't have to be ashamed of being afraid to move forward and face some demons and face some things about yourself that are maybe a little bit ugly, maybe a little bit damaged, maybe there's some trauma. I always recommend therapy. But life coaching, as a life coach, I can tell you that there is always a way out, but it's not going to come without facing fears. Nobody wants to be alone. And I can feel your pain right now. This is why I'm making it. A lot of times when I make these podcasts, I have no idea why I'm making them. I just know somebody needs to hear this. And if you're that person, I can feel your pain. And I hear you. And I understand what you're going through. Maybe you've been rejected. Maybe you just recently got divorced. Maybe there's someone you're really interested in and they're just a friend and they're just not interested. Maybe there are no options at all. Maybe you're in a small town and just there are no options. Trust me, there's always options. If you want something bad enough, you will figure out a way to get it. That's what men do. We don't sit back and say, hopefully I get what I need. We make things happen. It doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but you make things happen. You put things in place. You put scenarios together. You try to do what you know deep down inside you can do, but you've been telling yourself for too fucking long that you can't do it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We have to know our limitations. Everybody has limitations. That doesn't mean we can't test those boundaries and those walls. I do it all the time. Right when I think, oh, I can't do this, somehow I figure out a way to do it. If I want to do it bad enough, I will shut out all the noise. I will remember why I'm here. And I will give it my best effort. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, so what? There is no shame in that. The definition of shame is this: a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. Now read that to you again. The definition of shame is a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. You want to talk about some self-inflicted, self-respect, self-love, damage, and trauma? Shame. As men, there's certain things that we do not want to be associated with. And that's one of them. Shame. Reliving those moments of the rejection. Reliving the moments of when we got cheated on. When we lost our jobs. When we flunked out of school. When we couldn't make our car payments. When we couldn't do on and on and on. How does any of that define who you are right now? You can press the reset button at any point. Doesn't mean that all of this stuff goes away. It just means you're redirecting your energy and your focus and your purpose and your creativity and your uniqueness and your boundaries and your values, your self-respect, your self self-worth, your self-love, all in the direction of this is where I want to be right now. I don't say what if, I say I can. That is what the Brave Never Fall is all about, man. It's not about what if. It's about what can I create. Again, those blocks, the blueprints of life. We have to create these things for ourselves. And in those moments when we figure it out, that's when she arrives. And not a moment fucking sooner. We have to be brutally honest about where we're at in life. If we're all allowing relationships and women to define us fully, we will never get a woman or a relationship. That is the conundrum. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be stressed out. It's okay to feel the weight of rejection, like it's bereavement, like someone just died. A lot of cases it is. You've been with someone, you get dumped, it's like someone died. We know this. This podcast is to let you know that that is not your end. It is not your story. It is a chapter. It's not the complete story. It's just a chapter. And if you take that chapter and you just pull it out of a book and says, here's my book, this one chapter, and you got a 3-page chapter when you had a 250-page book, and that's how you want to define yourself, you're better than that. You are better than that. Take those pages, put it back in that book. Your story is much bigger than that. If you listen to this and you've been rejected, she dumped you, divorced you, you don't own her, you don't control her. You could have done the same thing to her. You've been cheated on, you could have done the same thing to her. Focusing on all that stuff just will send you down a spiral of even deeper and darker depression, where life coaching goes out the window at this point. Then you need therapy from a professional who can really help you get rid of those demons. It's not a game. It's not a joke. I take this very seriously. Just like I take bullying very seriously, and fairness and helping people. All these things I take seriously, because these are things, without focusing on these things, we can turn into monsters. Malevolence and benevolence, all these things are balanced out. If we don't focus on some of the things that we're struggling with, and if you're struggling with rejection, you keep putting yourself in situations where you're going to reject it, it's going to build up and you're going to snap, you're going to explode, you're going to be in the red. What good are you then to anyone? Especially if you're trying to come off as some masculine guy. You're not going to be very masculine when that shit gets into the red. You're going to get into your feelings, and that's when bad shit happens. Man, we got to wake up. We have to understand, if I could go back in time and tell myself anything, I would tell myself, will you just sit down, slow down, breathe, and stop bitching and just get your shit done. Stop worrying about this girl. Stop worrying about rejection. Stop worrying about relationships. Stop worrying about being cheated on. And just focus on you. And the rest of it falls into place. If I could tell myself that, I would. It would have helped me tremendously. It wouldn't have been easy to hear it or to practice it. But being a practitioner of all this is where these keys and these things that we look for in relationships, this is what really, for me, solidified me as a person who knew when I was in a marriage, I don't want this. Because again, we as men, we get caught in this trap of I want this right now, and we don't look at the long-term repercussions and ramifications of what we're doing because we're so caught up in our feelings. The first girl that shows us any attention, we're ready to fucking marry him. We haven't vetted them. We haven't even vetted ourselves. This is why so many children are born out of wedlock. Lust, impatience. I found someone. Wrong way to go. Our actions and what we do, these are things that will lead to good relationships. They will lead us to a place where we're not inflicted with our own trauma, that, again, self-inflicted trauma. Because we keep putting ourselves in situations where we're doing insane acts because we've done the same thing over and over and over again, expected a different result, and we're not fixing anything. She's rejecting you because you don't know your value. When you know your value, the rejections will go away. You won't be in a situation where rejection is even a possibility. Because in order to be rejected, you have to be involved in something that will warrant you being so emotionally conflicted and traumatized by the rejection that is there any rejection if you've already worked on yourself enough to shield yourself and protect yourself from anything that you would consider rejection? And that's the whole point. That's the reason why we have to focus on these things, because that rejection is just fear. It's not so much about the rejection, it's the fear, the unknown, the pain associated with rejection, the misunderstanding, the trauma and the drama. We feel like we've been abused, like someone died. We've been neglected by people we thought that, especially when it comes to the opposite sex, they can get in our feels, man. We all know this. You can take our masculine and turn it into a fucking pretzel. Cut it open and put salt on the wound. It's your life. It's not easy. I wouldn't pretend to say that it's easy. I wouldn't sit here and say that everything I just said is easy, because it's not. It's to remind you that you're not alone, that you are stronger than you believe, that you have more options than you believe, that there's more blocks out there for you to build and be creative, and that your uniqueness and your impact in life stems from this moment. That last breath you took was another moment for you to change something, to focus on something. And it's really up to you. And yes, it hurts to be alone. If you're alone listening to this, she's gone, or she hasn't arrived yet, or she just doesn't want you. I feel you. I got you. I understand. I've been there. But I'm also a man who understands that once I figured myself out, that's how I got my equivalent of my twin flame, my soulmate. And it's not easy. You have to work on it every single day. But you appreciate it. You understand why it's important to work on it every single day. To work on yourself every single day. To work on the relationship. To not be predictable. To grow every single day. In order to get to that place, the work starts before the relationship. Not when you get her. Stop looking. Stop hunting. Calm down. Relax. What you're looking for is going to come. It's going to come when those alignments in your life start to happen within yourself. When you start getting balanced out for yourself. If there's things you need to work on, there's therapy. I recommend the therapy. If you need medication, then you need your medication. You need a break. Like for me, when I got divorced, I needed a year off just to work on myself. It was important. It was something that needed to be done. Not because I got divorced, not because I was cheated on or abandoned or all these things. That's stuff that were consequences of me being in a marriage in the first place. What really happened was that I had to take accountability and ownership over everything that I did, good, bad, and the ugly. Relationships are not games. They're not toys. But for us to navigate and become better people with someone who offers us support. And if you know yourself, when you know yourself, and I believe in you, you will find yourself. And the rejection and that bereavement feeling of not having what you want in a relationship and in a woman, when you find out who you are, you'll find they'll come. They'll find you. You'll find them. And that's what it's all about. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.